Hello, everyone. I want to welcome you to another episode of the Marketing Center of Excellence. My name is Lane Houck, and I am your host of the MCoE podcast. Before I introduce our special guest for this episode, I want to quickly share the purpose of the Marketing Center of Excellence podcast. So let's start with what is a Marketing Center of Excellence? Well, the wiki on it says a center of excellence is a team, a shared facility, or an entity that provides leadership, best practices, research, support, and or training for a focus area. So the core purpose of the Marketing Center of Excellence is to provide leadership and best practices for those in the marketing industry, whether you're brand new to the marketing industry, a seasoned vet, or aspiring to start a marketing agency. The MCoE promises to be a wealthy resource for you in that journey. So on that note, let's transition. I want to introduce our special guests today, Lisa Goolsby and Stewart Schaffer. How are you guys?
Great. Thanks, Lane.
Good, Lane. Thanks.
Great to have you here. So let me give you guys a quick introduction here. Lisa is a strategist, speaker, and educator. She has worked as a strategist and executive in healthcare, education, the service industry, consumer packaged goods, and retail. As a PhD with an emphasis in digital marketing, Lisa regularly helps clients set strategy and remain relevant in today's ever-changing marketplace. She is an entrepreneur and has successfully started and operated several small businesses. On to Stewart. Stewart is a co-founder and managing partner at CSuite Solutions. He has been a senior strategy and business development executive in the healthcare, retail, and hospitality industries for over 25 years. His areas of expertise include strategic planning, organizational structure, business intelligence, product and service development, consumer marketing, branding, and all forms of digital marketing. His industry experience includes healthcare, retail, hospitality, outdoor recreation, charge card, and manufacturing. Stewart served as the Chief Marketing and Strategy Officer at Baycare Health System, where during his tenure, he led an organization-wide direct-to-consumer marketing and business development strategy. Stewart's work contributed to a 20% increase in net revenue of $500 million and a net margin increase from 5% to 7%. He has previously held senior marketing and business development positions at International Paper Company, American Express, and Club Corp of America. Stewart holds a BA and an MBA from Wharton School of Business. All right, welcome to both of you guys. So I guess before we dive into the theme for today, why don't you both each just take a few minutes and catch our audience up with what you both are currently doing. And I think that'll end up being a great way for us to segue into our topic for today as well. And I guess we'll start with the ladies first.
Thank you, Lane. I've been working with Stewart for over a year now, about 2 years, I think, as a senior advisor for CSuite Solutions, working with healthcare systems, developing digital strategies for them and helping to set overall strategy for their marketing and growth practices. Also have a couple other interests and do some teaching on the side. So trying to help a lot of students both at the undergrad and graduate level understand marketing and really know that marketing is more comprehensive than just sales and advertising, which is typically what everybody wants to fall to. So helping them to understand that they are first and foremost strategists.
Awesome. Stewart, how about you? Why don't you give us a quick catch up our audience on what you're currently working on at CSuite Solutions?
Well, as Lisa mentioned, we've been working together for the last 2 years and with my partners the last 5 years, working with large health systems and helping them just in general terms to become more innovative and using the existing talent and tools that they have in different ways to generate better patient outcomes, help drive out cost from the complex process of delivering healthcare. And we've also developed some, I would call them tools, different programs and tools to help them accomplish these, what are pretty lofty goals in terms of changing, having a paradigm shift in how healthcare is delivered.
I know what you guys are working on could very well fundamentally transform and change healthcare delivery and even healthcare costs potentially for the American population. So, you definitely have lofty goals. And I think that's probably a really good segue to talk about centers of excellence. I know you both have had, a fair amount of experience, just maybe extensive experience with centers of excellence in your healthcare part of your careers. But I think it'd be great to just have a discussion around, what is a center of excellence? What are your experiences with them as you've had them in healthcare and outside of healthcare? Lisa, with a PhD in that you just recently completed, why don't you start off and just maybe give us a little bit of background on how what your experience has been with centers of excellence, and we can just maybe let the dialogue go from there.
Well, I know centers of excellence in healthcare, one of the things that we always looked at was making sure that we had a comprehensive program. So from start to finish, we were able to provide all the resources necessary for quality care, and that we had the best outcomes in the industry so that we were seen as an industry leader. And part of that was, one of the things that I worked on early on was pediatrics. And I know that our biggest interest was in making sure that we had a significant amount of procedures so that our physicians were best in the industry, because they had extensive experience, and that we did have all the comprehensive resources necessary from start to finish for the program. So we would have, child life specialists, we would have specific pediatric emergency room. We had all of the things that we needed for that comprehensive program so that we could take care of, all of the necessary procedures and issues that would come up with pediatrics.
Awesome. Stewart, you want to?
Yeah. So I think, the Center of Excellence concept originates with the idea that, as the world gets more complex, and you're working in a certain discipline and you're trying to achieve better results, how do you better integrate all the processes and procedures and all the talent that you need and the people that you need into one focused effort, so that you have all the, as Lisa said, all the pieces that are necessary, parts and pieces, so that whether it's consumer or a patient, whatever the venue is, gets the best product, the best service that they possibly can get from your organization.
So why would an organization or anyone, what's the purpose of a COE as far as you guys have seen in your practical experiences? Why have they been formed? What's the overarching, goal or mission of a COE, in what you guys have seen?
Well, I'll go first and then kick it over to Stewart. But I think one of the main things that centers of excellence in healthcare have always been interested in is it creates a good brand for any healthcare system. If you do have a center of excellence, say in stroke or cardiology, it sets a standard that you do have a comprehensive program, you have good outcomes, and you're able to really focus and niche on some things in that industry, in that market area.
So, what I hear you saying there is that from a branding standpoint, when you say we're creating a center of excellence in our industry, in our niche, inside our organization, you're putting yourself out there as a brand saying, we're going to become subject matter experts. We're going to develop expertise and excellence around this. And so it's also calling the organization higher, it sounds like, as well, when you put yourself out there to establish and build one.
Yes, I mean, you actually absolutely have to follow through. As with any good brand, it's not just something you say, it's something you live.
So, I think, when people that want to be successful, whether it's an organization, a healthcare system, or it's an individual professional, people that want to excel and be as successful as they possibly can be, I think all, kind of at least in an underlying way, recognize the need to be positioned as an expert in their industry, right? And so I think at the underlying a center of excellence is that desire and maybe even a recognition of the need to become an expert and be positioned as an expert within your industry, And one way to both excel and propel the expertise and also communicate that expertise is around this concept of developing a center of excellence. Stewart, what do you think?
So yeah, and I think in high level terms, I think the idea starts, you have a vision or a plan. So center of excellence, I think, for me, has to have three basic things in addition to others. You have to have the plan or the vision or the goal of what it is you're trying to accomplish.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to have the resources, right? A lot of times, that involves money and investment in all kinds of things, equipment and software.
Personnel.
And then, investment in, that was my last thing, was expertise.
Yeah.
So you have the vision or the plan, you have the resources, and you have the expertise, and everybody is working under that same plan, that same focus. And you have all the pieces that you need. If you want to use a metaphor, you're building, let's say, a model of something, and you open the box, and everything you need to put that together is in that box. And so this concept, began quite a while ago, decades ago. And as time went on, the concepts became more formalized. And then there were sanctioning bodies that offered accreditation and certification. So, for example, in the healthcare industry, Joint Commission offers an accreditation and certification. So what I want to keep clear is that you can have a center of excellence with or without accreditation or certification. Right. However, capital bold and underscored, which I know would make Lisa uncomfortable because that wouldn't look good in print. However, having that accreditation or certification gives you a whole higher level of credibility. But there are many centers of excellence that operated without it for many years and got, you could ask a cab driver in a city, where do you go? Where would I go if I had, if I've just been diagnosed with cancer? And they'd say Sloan Kettering, in New York. So there were centers of excellence for things before you had accreditation and certification. But in today's world, it often, especially in the clinical world, it often comes with accreditation and certification. Now, as my mother used to say, when in my early days, when I was, functioning in addition to business strategy and business development as a marketing executive, I got that added to my title. As she used to say, she used to ask, is that a licensed profession? And I'd say, no, it's not a licensed profession. And, the meaning there was, how legitimate is it if it's not a licensed profession? So in that regard, in that vein, what I want to say next is you can have a marketing center of excellence. And maybe I'm not current, but to my knowledge, I don't know if there's a certification for that, but I know for a fact that the three of us, and since Lisa and I are the guests, I'll vouch for her and I, we know one when we see one, right. Even though I'm not aware. Lisa, are you aware if there's a certification for a center of excellence in marketing? If my mother were still alive, she would absolutely say there should be one.
Well, I don't think there's a certification for a center of excellence, but years ago, and it has been quite a long time, and I won't even say how long, I was very, very active in the American Marketing Association, and early in my career, I did marketing for a large healthcare consulting firm, mostly comprised of accountants. And we all know that accountants like to lord over us their CPA designation, as do financial people with their certified financial planner designation. So I kept on the American Marketing Association that, hey, there's no professional certification designation for marketers. And one of the problems I've always seen in marketing, and Stewart, you and I have talked about this and often laughed about it, everybody's a marketer. Anybody who does anything in sales, or now we have all of these people that, particularly a lot of college students that have a Instagram or Facebook account. So all of a sudden they're experts in digital marketing because they do social media. Doing it and understanding it and having it as part of an overall marketing strategy is a completely different thing. And so years ago, the AMA actually did a professional certified marketer designation, and I was actually one of the first to take that exam and have that designation. I don't know that they've I haven't looked for a long time, and I haven't been as active as I probably should be as I was early in my career. I don't know if that's still something that is going on, but I've talked with a lot of clients in the past that, you know, will hire people that say they do marketing and really all they do is, you know, social media or sales. And so there's no strategy behind it, and therefore there's no visible results from the activity or the work. And it's somewhat of a shame out there for people that want marketers and are being duped by not having that professional certification.
So
definitely no that I'm aware of. There is no certification, you know, in terms of a marketing center of excellence or having any kind of industry body. They're more informal. You know, there's a few that are out there. You know, Gartner has this article on like how to, you know, when it's a good idea and how to get the best results. But there is from the marketing industry, you know, there really is no governing body or sanctioning or certifying body in that respect.
So I think I touched on a nerve, which could be the subject for our next podcast, Lane. But anyway, I think you came around and tied it up, which is, you know, if there were a sanctioning body, and we'll talk about a marketing COE just for a minute or two, because in the healthcare world, there's many examples, but if there were a sanctioning body, it probably should be the American Marketing Association. And it would be wonderful if they did have, you know, if there is a marketing center of excellence, what it would look like. And Lisa and I will volunteer 5 hours each of our time pro bono to give the American Marketing Association our hard-won scars and battles for what we had to go through to create those COEs in our careers when we were, you know, on the line. But I'll tell you this, and I taught, you know, with the three of us talked about this briefly before the podcast. When running an enterprise marketing team, when I was running enterprise marketing teams going back to the early 2000s, even the late 1990s, when websites were coming up into their own, you know, I had teams of digital marketing people and I had teams of conventional marketing people, and it was two worlds. They didn't communicate very well nor very often. And when you looked at the branding and the messaging and the calendar, the most egregious of all, how different those two worlds were and how they operated separately from each other. So I would imagine, I'm giving some of this information for free right now to the American Marketing Association, but I would imagine that, and so fast forward in my career, Baycare Health System, 2010 to 2015, I got to a point, and this may not sound possible, but I actually was able to say in somewhat of a sarcastic or humorous way that if I ever caught anybody doing something in digital that didn't have a counterpart in traditional, or vice versa, in terms of content, in terms of the messaging, in terms of the targeting, that I personally would give you 2 hours of my time to help you update your resume. And the message was not that I wanted to fire anybody, but that you would be doing something very egregiously wrong if there wasn't one unified calendar for everything. You know, in marketing, you know, you have two things. I mean, you have more than two things, but let me be the Steven Spielberg of marketing, who said there's only eight scripts for films. Every film ever made, there's only 8 scripts. Well, there's only two things in marketing. You have the message and the medium. And the fact that some of those mediums are digital and some are bricks and mortars is irrelevant. You have to manage and master them all. And when you have a campaign, a center of excellence would have campaign plans that encompass a unified message across all the appropriate mediums.
Right.
And maybe I missed one thing. You have the message, the medium, and the target, right? So you have to use data today to really be, and you have much more data today in the digital world to identify who the targets are. So don't make it complicated, but organize your enterprise marketing. I had 110 employees, and believe it or not, marketing and communications. That was the other thing. The communications world, when I got there, was often a different world. Well, the message in the medium doesn't matter if it's communications or marketing. Marketing is communications. Communications is marketing. Okay.
PR is communications.
Exactly. So the
communication needs to support this overall strategy, and that's oftentimes where people run askew.
Right. So just to put a period at the end of the sentence, there could be a marketing a certification, an accreditation, just like there is in healthcare, for a marketing center of excellence. I wish there was, and maybe Lisa and I, we with the pandemic, we don't have that much to do right now. So we'll draw up a white paper. Lisa, what do you say?
I think that sounds good. I'm done with my homeschooling stint for a bit here. So.
So let me ask you guys this: if I were a marketing agency, digital, traditional, a combination of both, and I really wanted to level up my game and maybe just have a more informal center of excellence within my team as an agency, what are some things you would recommend that they do? What are some steps that they need to take in order to have an informal COE inside their organization on their own team? Most digital agencies or marketing agencies today are going to have a multidisciplinary team if they're in-housing all of the fulfillment. They're going to have graphic designers, web designers, maybe someone in PR, someone in social media, someone in content writing, and so there's definitely a multidisciplinary team there. What are some steps they should take to maybe go from just the idea to really instituting it to level up their game?
So Lisa, maybe I'll jump in first, and you can tie it all together. First of all, and a lot of people in your audience might disagree with this, might not be happy with what I'm about to say, but to me, the concept of a digital marketing agency is kind of an oxymoron. And the reason for that is I think if you're going to be if you're going to go into marketing and be an agency of sorts, digital marketing, I think, was important in the early years when the discipline was very young, right? Because traditional marketing didn't have a clue what it was, and companies needed digital marketing. So you could go in, pretty much do your thing, and not ever talk to anybody in the traditional marketing world. Or the offline world, yeah. In the offline world.
Right.
So in today's world, if the three of us were starting up an agency, I would just say we're a marketing agency, because you've got to be tied to the brand. You got to be tied to the point of sale. The point of sale is not just an iPhone, okay? It's also what is in the bricks and mortar world. It's still there. It still exists. Malls haven't all been converted to apartment houses, right? So I think you've got to integrate everything across the continuum. So there's that word again. You have to integrate. So two words that are most centers of excellence are integration and a continuum. So as a marketing agency, if you might be highly digital and that's what your fastball is, I'm not suggesting you change that, but you need to take an interest in your client's bricks and mortar world and make sure everything you're doing, force yourself to be on the team, I guess is what I'm saying, on a multidisciplinary team, because the copywriters and the copy editors and the brand, the brand strategy people, you've got to be in lockstep with all of them, or you're just the tail on the dog. I never want to be the tail on the dog. It's not a good place to be for a lot of obvious reasons. Okay.
So you brought up a really good point there. So if you're an agency today, you can't just consider yourself a digital agency. You really, this goes back to the multi-channel, right? You've got to excel on all channels of reaching your audience. And then it goes kind of ties into a point you mentioned earlier, Lisa, which is, operating within a niche, because if you're going to really excel in an agency, I know you said it before. Why don't you talk about, how you feel about that in terms of niching? If you're really going to be an excellent at marketing, finding a niche is really important in your opinion, right?
Well, yes. And what I would say is finding a niche is really looking at what industry you want to support, because as a marketer, you need to know everything about that industry, and it's hard to be an industry expert in all industries. So I could do marketing in healthcare, I could do marketing in retail, I could do marketing in education. It may be hard to then pick manufacturing and 3 or 4 other things, especially early in your career. Usually you want to pick an industry and become the expert in that industry. And I would say, just to kind of wrap up what Stewart was talking about too, the integration, if you're doing marketing properly, the research needs to inform the strategy, and the data needs to support whatever that strategy was. So you should have data that shows those results. And if you can't produce data to show your results, you're just pretty much spinning your wheels. And I think that's where a lot of people that say they're in marketing, they're not doing the research, they're not developing the strategy, and they're not showing the results of their work with data that backs that up. And so you can do a lot of activity, and you can be very busy doing a lot of activity, but to have a really good comprehensive marketing strategy, you need to have those 3 components to demonstrate your proven results. And that, I think, is what makes you excellent in something, if you have good proven results backed up by data.
And what you see in a lot of centers of excellence, and I'm sure you guys can speak to this in experience, especially in healthcare, is centers of excellence will put out case studies, right? That's their results, right? So they'll do case studies and then publish those studies to really, put their results out there and show. So any comments on case studies and how those, back up what you're talking about?
Well, they'll put out quality statistics, right? So, they'll put out quality. Well, there are already quality statistics about mortality, morbidity, and things like that. But also, I think if one example that comes to mind is Bariatric Center of Excellence, where you're tracking patients after procedures or after services that are provided, nutrition services and things like that, and how many of them actually were able to lose weight and sustain it. I think that's very important. Having customer testimonials, very important in a service business. I would also say that what medicine is moving towards is more the behavioral aspects of medicine is being much more emphasized in this value-based world. So if you already have a center of excellence, and the really good health systems are doing this, hospitals and health systems, the default has been mostly to deal with the physical aspects of a disease or a condition, but there's been much more emphasis today being placed on the behavioral aspects. So and now we'll switch gears and focus on clinical. Anything clinical today has got to have a very robust behavioral component to it, because it's a huge part of the experience of the patient experience, whether you have a certain stage of cancer, or you have things that are elective like bariatric surgery or joint replacement or things like that. A lot of it comes down to having compassion and transferring information to the letting the patient know what's going to happen and when, giving them a timeline. And if there's any departures from the timeline, keeping them informed every step of the way. So a lot of it is non-medical. I mean, when you really look at patient satisfaction, there's a ton of it that's non-medical. It's how you're greeted when you walk in the door. Do people know me? Do they know who I am? Does the doctor come into the exam room? And we did a lot of consumer research on this. The doctor knows me. You know, if a doctor comes into the exam room and is looking at my chart, not a good look, okay? Appointment scheduling. You know, if I'm more than 15 minutes with a specialist or a primary care in a waiting room, that's not good. If I'm more than 15 minutes in an exam room, that's not good. I mean, this isn't me saying this. These are we did a consumer survey with 3,000 patients, which was statistically significant, plus or minus 5%, 95% confidence interval. And, you know, just to give you an example, if you're going to an urgent care and it's 45 minutes, patients are willing to accept that because they didn't have an appointment. So when you're doing a center of excellence in healthcare, yes, there's the medical certifications, which have to be spot on. I mean, how clean the facility is, what are their processes to minimize or eliminate hospital-acquired, infection. What's the door-to-doctor or door-to-procedure time? Very important in a stroke center. So all of these things are bits and pieces. But if you look at a Center of Excellence business plan, which let's hope there is one, it's a comprehensive business plan. It has all of it in there with the three pieces we were talking about: a unique vision or singular vision focus. It has the resources, which are both financial and capital and people resources, and it has the expertise to do it. And the expertise, by the way, going back to Bariatric Center of Excellence, that nurse nutritionist or just a certified nutritionist or that behavioral psychologist is oftentimes as much or more important to the process than an actual procedure, because a lot of times patients, will change their decision focus if there's a chance of getting better without a procedure. That's the best of all worlds. Or maybe doing a less radical procedure. I'm getting clinical here, but doing a lap band versus a bypass. Bypass is a very invasive procedure. So a lot of the patients can be moved down the acuities curve to a much lower acuity if you can work with them from a behavioral point of view.
So let's apply what you were just talking about to a marketing agency. If we're a marketing agency and you take all those principles that a healthcare center of excellence would apply and institute into both clinical and the overall patient or customer experience, I think there's some really good parallels that you could take from that and apply them to a marketing agency. Lisa, how do you see some of these things, these principles that Stewart was just commenting on, applied to a marketing agency?
Well, I think in marketing, as I referenced earlier, you need a very holistic approach. It's not just about going out there and doing social media for a client. It's really understanding their industry, understanding their customer, and figuring out what their goals are and a good strategy so that the things that you're doing will signal back to those goals and that strategy. And so you're not just doing things to be doing them and to be active and to have activity. You're doing things that really matter, and you can show those results in your data. The analytics should point to a center of excellence, to your good outcomes. I mean, just like in healthcare and marketing, you want good outcomes from the work that you do, and you need to be able to demonstrate those good outcomes with data.
Mm-hmm. Stewart, good point, Lisa. And then you were talking about just, a lot about the experience, the patient or customer experience, and how much of that, a COE will really look into that. It's like I look at it as that layer of the onion, right? The COE is going to peel back the layers of the onion and really look deeper into the overall outcome and how much they've noticed, like you said, that the behavioral and the patient experience components really play into the overall successful outcome. applying that to a marketing agency, what I was hearing you say was, well, we've got to really look deeper at the customer experience as a marketing agency. What are we doing specifically to tailor that customer experience? I know that you're a big proponent of communication, proactive communication, reporting. Why don't you talk? I mean, I see those parallels between a healthcare COE and looking at the patient experience, and then looking at a marketing agency. And why don't you talk about those parallels?
So there's two types of experience if you're an agency. There's the client, right? And then there's the client's customers. And I can tell you the recipe for having a client as a customer for a very long time, 10, 20 years. If you want a recipe for that, be shoulder to shoulder with the client while they're looking at their customer, and also be one step ahead of the client in terms of how they're thinking and what they need next. A lot of agencies, I work with many agencies over many, many years. And, you could put the agencies into three buckets. I don't want to oversimplify this. There were the agencies, the only time you ever heard from them was your invoice every month. And you really didn't know what they were doing for that. And you really didn't understand how they integrated into your overall business strategy, your overall strategic marketing plan. So working for large enterprises, as I did most of my career, we always had an enterprise-wide strategic marketing and business development plan. So that was one bucket. The middle bucket was where most of the agencies were, which they took a kind of a passing interest in what we were doing, and they learned the vocabulary. I like cinematography, and if you've seen those spy films where the spies aren't that good, they try to talk the language. World War II, you'd have spies in Nazi Germany that didn't quite speak the right dialect of German. They tried to speak German, but they got caught and executed anyway. So that was kind of like the middle bucket. And then there was the unique agencies that you put your arms around and fell in love with, who could speak your language fluently, to use that same. They knew your challenges, they knew your fears, they understood where you were trying to go. And so we don't get completely off the chart here. They didn't try to be everything to everybody, but what they did well, they said, here's where we fit into your plan. And by the way, here's where your plan kind of sucks. Here's where we think it could be better. And, I'm joking, but I'm also being serious. If you get close enough to your customer like that, you can tell them where their plan sucks. But you better also have some ideas on how to improve it. So,
which supports, again, that whole idea of niching as an agency, right? So you can really talk their language, understand their fears, their needs, their pain points really, really well, talk their language fluently.
Yeah, I mean, most agencies are rowing their own boat. When they want to get into your boat and row along with your people, now you have a relationship that can last for decades. By the way, let me just say one more thing. I understand there's a lot of agencies out there that just do software support or whatever. It's okay to be, it's okay to do that, but be a software company. Don't say I'm a marketing agency. I'm a software company that specializes in a marketing vertical. So that gets back to branding. So don't brand yourself as a multidisciplinary marketing agency when you're really, you may just be, for a particular vertical, you have the best CRM system going. Well, be a CRM company that can help me in the vertical that I'm in. So that's just another tip I would throw out there.
I think that goes back to, Stewart, you talk a lot about setting expectation. And so having an understanding of what the true expectation and the outcome will be helps make that customer experience a little more robust.
One thing I did was I invited our agencies. We had quarterly marketing strategy meetings. Some of the best ideas we got were from our agencies. We had our vendors there too. We had probably one of our most original and innovative sources of strategy came from our print vendor, our print rep, who I dragged kicking and screaming to the first couple of meetings. She didn't understand why I wanted her there, but I saw a brilliance in her that had tremendous potential, and she went on to deliver that talent that she had to all of her customers. And I live in the Tampa Bay area, and there isn't a large marketing organization in Tampa Bay that doesn't know this person. Every one of them knows her.
Well, guys, I mean, we're at about 40 minutes here. I really appreciate the insight, the advice, the experience you guys have shared around this idea of a center of excellence. Any parting thoughts, that our listening audience might be able to share with, just in terms of a parting thought or a piece of advice, especially for those digital or I'll correct myself, not digital agencies, marketing agencies, right, Stewart? Marketing agencies need to. I think that's a really good point that you made. There is that there was a point where digital was really important and focused, but now we've kind of graduated into I think we're all comfortable with that multi-channel world. And marketing agencies need to be proficient and have expertise not just in digital, but in communicating the message in both online and offline mediums.
So just let me say one quick thing, because I'm going to talk about you, Lane, and your partner, Matt. What you guys did, okay, to make yourself more of an agency, and any of the other agencies out there can do this. And we didn't touch on this word today, and it's the word strategy. Mm-hmm. Add strategy to whatever software you're selling, and then you become a consulting firm, a marketing consulting firm. So if it were me and I was really selling software, and that was my primary business, I would add strategy on top of that, and then I would put myself out there as a consultancy, a marketing consultancy.
And most agencies that we have are going to be doing, search engine optimization, digital advertising, maybe helping with, graphic design and some of the offline communication methods. They're really not going to be software companies per se.
But all of that is a commodity today.
Right.
So how do you make yourself different is you pick some verticals, become aware of what the successful strategies are, and add strategy to your service offering, and charge appropriately for it.
Absolutely. Lisa?
I've had a good time talking with you and Stewart this morning, and what I would say too is looking at centers of excellence. Stewart talked about strategy and making sure that that's driving everything and that it is completely integrated. One thing I will say about marketing, which I've seen, I guess probably more so in smaller companies, but marketing needs to be done consistently. It's not something you turn off and on. And I've seen some companies that just decide, we want to turn our marketing on now because we're in trouble. We need to grow our company. So we're going to put a whole bunch of stuff into marketing, and they do it for a few months. They start to see results, and then they're like, okay, let me turn that funnel off. It doesn't really work that way. Marketing needs to be done consistently because your brand always needs to be at the forefront for your customers to be in their recognition set.
Mm-hmm. So consistency and strategy, and execution, and focus on strategy, not just tactics, which is definitely a focus that we've had, Matt and I, is, the strategy. You can take the same tactics, but if you don't have the strategy, those tactics can have vastly different outcomes for sure.
So one other thought, sorry. What I would also recommend every business out there to do, and we're going to do it also, Lisa and I are going to be rewriting the copy for our website. Mm-hmm. And that copy is going to focus like a laser on how to restore your business after COVID-19, how to get those sales back and start growing again. And I would recommend every marketing agency or marketing consulting firm use that in you've got to change your own branding and your own for the times. And you've got the average company out there that's probably lost 50 or more % of its business. That's not going to just walk back through the door. They're going to have to fight to get it back. And if they have you as resonating in their ear as somebody who can help them do that, then, and come up with some proprietary programs that can help, or campaign strategies that can help you get your business back. How do you get that repeat customer back? Hopefully you have all those customers in a list. And what would get them back? What kind of reward system? What could you come up with to restore the revenue and financial health of your company? So you got to,
and hopefully they didn't stop their marketing during the crisis. I mean, it's a good time to really look at how you're going to adapt and change to a different marketplace. But hopefully you've consistently been, working with your brand and continuing your marketing activity so that you're not, you haven't been forgotten by your consumer.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, guys, thank you very much for both your times today. I appreciate you very much. Appreciate your expertise and your advice here. Hopefully our listeners will have gained some great insight and just some great tips on how to charge forward in 2020. Thanks again for your time. I appreciate it. And I hope everyone listening to the Marketing Center of Excellence podcast episode has enjoyed this particular episode. Have a great day.
Thank you. Thanks.